Then we'll come to the gentlelady for her amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to be clear about what we just heard a few minutes ago from Ms. Crockett from Texas, that we are doing a bill on some, quote, random dead person. This person was a vibrant soul, had a life, was pursuing a degree. She's not some random dead person, but she's a symptom of a larger problem, which you guys have ignored for years, which is that we're going to import and fling open the gates of our southern border and allow these individuals to come into this country, that we're not going to vet them, that we're not going to ascertain about where they land, and that we're not even going to follow up. The gentlelady from Wyoming introduced into the record a Homeland Security report. There's a Health and Human Services report about all of the systemic failures of the last administration. And the flippant and, quite frankly, callous response by the gentlelady from Texas is that she's just some random dead girl. Now, she just walked out of the room, so I guess she didn't want to hear this. But her mother, if you want to talk to her mother, which I encourage you to do so that you understand who she was, here's a quote from her mother that she was texting with me. Kayla talked a mile a minute like a hummingbird. She loved animals, especially her cat Oreo. She cared about the homeless. She loved her mommy. She treasured her family and friends. She loved God and loved going to church. She loved her birthday and Christmas. She loved the beach and the pool and swimming. Her voice and laugh carried across the room, even when the room was quiet. She loved music and loved to have fun. She lived every day to the fullest, and boy, did that girl love to sleep. And I can go on and on. This was a young lady who was pursuing a degree as a veterinarian. She wanted to help people. She wanted to live her life. She wasn't some random dead person that we just plucked out of a hat. She is a symptom of a larger problem that you have ignored. We had a field hearing, my first term in Congress. Not a single damn Democrat showed up to look at the open border lawlessness caused by this administration. So while you sit here quietly for the last 4 years when Joe Biden and Kamala Harris allowed and tacitly sanctioned the trafficking of hundreds of thousands of children across the border, I think it's pretty dang shameful. You said nothing while young girls and boys were raped and otherwise abused by their smugglers and traffickers. You didn't even raise a finger to help when the New York Times, of all places, not really a bastion of conservatism, exposed the labor trafficking of unaccompanied minor children. There were no consequences to the actions of the last administration, and you just buried your heads in the sand. So Kayla Hamilton wasn't a random dead person. She was one of many people who have been victimized by the lawless border problems created by the last administration, and you refuse to acknowledge it, and that's shameful. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlelady from Texas, I believe, seeks recognition. Gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment at the desk.
Amendment to the amendment.
Gentleman from Wisconsin reserves a point of order.
Nature of a substitute.
Amendment will be considered as read. The gentlelady is recognized to explain her amendment.
My amendment today would strike the provision of this bill that would require the Secretary of Health and Human Services, who we know is incompetent, to conduct body examinations of unaccompanied children aged 12 and over to see if they have gang markings. I don't know what your obsession is subjecting kids to government mandated strip searches, but it needs to stop. Now, I want y'all to take a second and really think what you're trying to force little kids to go through. This has to be the third time y'all have tried to push a bill that would give the federal government legal authority to put kids in compromising, traumatizing situations. Whether it's immigrant kids or trans kids, every chance you get, it seems like you want to force the government to look at little kids' bodies. Now, let me put this differently. You want to give some stranger, a federal government employee no less, for all of you small government folks over there on the other side of the aisle, free reign to examine little 6th or 7th graders for some obscure thing that isn't even conclusive evidence that they're in a gang. I mean, this is kind of insane. This provision is just another example of the hypocrisy coming from my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. Y'all love to talk a big game when it comes to protecting kids from harm and trauma, but the fact is, it's all an act. Because if Republicans really cared, y'all wouldn't be refusing to release the Epstein files and bring justice to the victims of human trafficking and assault. And I do want to make sure that I put a little asterisk here. Everyone is talking about how great Comer is doing and this and that. To be clear, it was an oversight subcommittee, and it was the Democrat who is the ranking member who actually brought the motion to release the files. It just so happened that there were enough Republicans on that subcommittee, seemingly more than on this full committee, that had the courage enough to actually vote with the Democrats. But let me be clear, this was Democrats leading. This was the tail wagging the dog, so I don't want y'all to forget that part. Don't go around claiming that y'all are the heroes because now there's supposedly files that are coming out. It was the Democrats that led that, just to be clear. Now, you sure as hell wouldn't be forcing kids who are in middle school into situations where the federal government is placing them in a room with a random adult, strip searching them to try to find some obscure amorphous thing. Now, I know some of my Republican colleagues here have kids, and I'm willing to bet that if your kid was going to say England and you found out some random government employee over there was going to strip search your kid to look for some tattoos or markings, you would lose your damn mind. You do everything you could to prevent this from happening and save them from that trauma. And that's all I'm asking you to do today, is to protect these kids. Spare these kids from the unnecessary trauma. Be the adults in the room today, because enough is enough. Nothing in my amendment prevents DHS or even HHS from requesting a kid's criminal record or prevents HHS from evaluating whether kids are a danger to themselves or others. What this amendment does do, however, is prevent kids from having to go through unnecessary strip searches and be traumatized for the rest of their lives. If you're really on the side of history, if you really want to be on the right side of history, then that means that you'll do all that you can to protect kids, and I urge you to support my amendment. The final thing that I will say is I stand by everything that I said before. Y'all love to cherry pick because you claim that the immigrants are the reason for crime, but you have nothing to say about white supremacists in this country. I don't remember, as we are headed to yet a record number of school shootings in this country as it relates to children, I don't remember y'all bringing bills in the names of any of these itty bitty children. In fact, the most recent shooting, as y'all love to send thoughts and prayers, these babies were legitimately praying when they were killed. So I don't remember y'all trying to do gun reform for all of that. I don't remember y'all being super outraged when it came to January 6th and those defendants. Well over 1,000 defendants. And we're talking about they beat up on law enforcement. Now y'all love law enforcement. You love some ICE. Now that ICE is going around thugging everywhere. But nevertheless, I don't remember y'all even having the courage to say, yes, put the damn plaque up. That was signed into law. Y'all won't even do that. So don't tell me that y'all are here being the champions for everybody. You are very selective. So yes, it is a game. Because if I want to do legislation, I don't have to put somebody's name on it to do right. I don't have to put one of the children's names so that I can have real gun reform and save lives. And I will yield.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentleman withdraws his point of order. The gentleman from South Carolina is recognized to speak on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In fact, I think you should, if you will stand by it, I think you should probably apologize to the mother and the family of the one that you called a random dead girl. I think that would be appropriate. But let's be clear about something right now. While the member from Texas is busy filming TikTok videos and dancing around the halls of Congress, maybe it would be prudent to know that we already do medical evaluations of UACs when they come in the country. All we're asking in this bill is that you say, hey, that looks like a tattoo. Is that a gang tattoo? There's no material change other than that is a tattoo, that's a gang tattoo. And if we had done that, Kayla would still be alive. You know, the random dead girl that you just called out. Kayla Hamilton is her name. She would still be alive. So time and time again, our Democrat colleagues seem to be more interested in defending illegal aliens, including dangerous criminals, than American citizens. The Democrats say we can't use our common sense and place children with gang tattoos in secure placements. I call BS, and I think the American people do. If a teenager in HHS custody has an MS-13 tattooed across his or her forehead, why should HHS have to wait to find out more information? They shouldn't. Secure placements aren't medieval prisons, as the Democrats are making them out to be. These are safe facilities designed precisely for the purpose of housing juveniles who may present a danger to themselves or to others. I would also remind my colleagues that the provisions in this bill have no bearing on the basis for a UAC's potential for removal from the country. The bill simply says that while a UAC's immigration proceedings play out in court, if the UAC has obvious markings that are gang affiliated, maybe they should be housed with other children, or maybe they shouldn't be housed with other children and set free into our American communities. This is just simply common sense. And as we know, when aliens are in a secure facility for the pendency of their immigration proceedings, these proceedings do not drag on for years, but can be concluded quickly within a matter of weeks. I urge my colleagues to vote against this amendment. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Representative Russell Fry, RSC, and Representative Jasmine Crockett, Democrat, Texas, had a heated clash over the Kayla Hamilton Act, with both lawmakers sharply disagreeing on key provisions. The debate started when Representative Fry expressed his frustration with Representative Crockett's dismissive comments about the tragic death of Kayla Hamilton. Fry was particularly angered when Crockett referred to Kayla as a random dead person, calling her death a symptom of a larger issue rather than an isolated incident. Fry passionately defended Kayla Hamilton, a young woman who was pursuing a degree in veterinary science and had been deeply involved in her community. He described her as a vibrant soul with dreams and aspirations, not just a faceless victim. According to Fry, her death was indicative of the broader problem of lawlessness at the southern border, which he argued had been ignored for years. He pointed out that many innocent lives had been lost due to the reckless border policies that allowed individuals to enter the country without proper vetting, and there was little follow-up on where these individuals ended up. Fry expressed his disbelief at the lack of concern from some lawmakers who had been silent during the previous administration's handling of the border crisis, especially when children were being trafficked across the border. He criticized Crockett for her nonchalant attitude, accusing her of ignoring the suffering of the victims like Kayla Hamilton, who was just one of many who had been affected by the lawlessness. The debate escalated as Representative Crockett responded by defending her position and proposing an amendment to the bill. She vehemently opposed a provision that would require the Secretary of Health and Human Services to conduct examinations of unaccompanied children to check for gang markings. Crockett argued that forcing children to undergo strip searches was not only intrusive but traumatic. She questioned the obsession with subjecting minors to such procedures and believed that this was an unnecessary violation of their rights. Crockett also accused her Republican colleagues of hypocrisy, pointing out their failure to address the issue of human trafficking and child abuse, particularly in cases related to the Epstein files, which had been kept under wraps. She argued that if Republicans truly cared about protecting children, they would focus on real issues, like gun violence and school shootings, which were claiming the lives of innocent children across the nation. She also expressed concerns over the inconsistency in the GOP's stance on protecting children, accusing them of being selective in their advocacy. Crockett called for Republicans to stop focusing on immigrant children and instead address issues that were happening within the United States, including the growing threat of white supremacy and domestic terrorism. Representative Fry, however, doubled down on his position, defending the need for evaluating gang tattoos in unaccompanied minors. He argued that identifying such markings was a matter of common sense to protect both the children and the communities they were being placed in. Fry suggested that if gang affiliations were identified early on, it could help ensure that minors were placed in secure facilities where they would be safe, instead of being released into communities where they could pose a risk. He also pointed out that medical evaluations of unaccompanied minors were already taking place, so the amendment simply sought to add another layer of safety for the children. Fry rejected Crockett's portrayal of the provision as an invasive strip search, insisting that it was about ensuring the safety of everyone involved. The clash ended with Fry urging his colleagues to vote against Crockett's amendment, emphasizing that the bill's provisions were rooted in common sense and would help address the growing safety concerns at the border. He maintained that protecting American citizens and securing the border should be a top priority, especially in light of the many tragic stories like Kayla Hamilton's death. The disagreement between Fry and Crockett highlighted the ongoing ideological divide over immigration policy, border security, and the protection of children. While Fry championed the need for stricter measures to combat gang violence and human trafficking, Crockett pushed back against what she saw as an overreach by the federal government, particularly when it came to the treatment of minors. The clash underscored the complexity of the issues at hand and the deep divide between the two parties on how best to address the challenges at the southern border.